So we are now approaching Samhain time, which is directly in between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. And this time of year is steeped with magic and mystery and depth and death. And it's correlated with the Scorpio season. So today I'm going to talk about ways to intentionally celebrate this time of year using ritual and plant medicine. So the word Samhain actually means summer's end in Gaelic. This holiday hails from the Celtic peoples, and this festival was celebrated over a several day period, which represented the final harvest of the season and the end of summer. And it's not just the end of summer for them, but the end of the year. So this is kind of a new year for them, recognizing that as we step into what's new, we actually need to die first. There needs to be a shedding, there needs to be a releasing and a letting go. So for them, birth, the new, began with death, began with dying, began with entering into this fallow period of stillness and darkness and questioning and dreaming and really receiving from the fertile darkness. So this time of year is said to be when the veils between the worlds are thin. It is the time when we can hear the whispers from the other world, from the spirit world, from the ancestral world, the world of the dead, however you want to name this. It's recognized cross-culturally as a time when we can really honor our ancestors and we can hear the whispers of the spirit world or this really creative power that's not necessarily visible, but we can tap into a little bit deeper at this time, which is part of the reason why it's steeped in so much magic and mystery, this really dark, fertile womb that is abundant with creative power. It's abundant with new information if we allow ourselves to get still enough. And also what happens at this time of year is a shedding, as is often talked about. You know, we see externally the leaves have turned, they're beginning to shed. A lot of the trees are now their skeleton of who they used to be over the summer. But so it's a coming into the most authentic bare bones of something being like the skeleton, and shedding anything extra, anything that we don't need to take with us into these dark winter months can go. The first thing I wanted to talk about in terms of ritual is celebrating your ancestors via an ancestor altar. It's a wonderful way to reminisce, to honor, to nourish the memory of these people who came before you, who have given their lives for you. It's a wonderful time to honor anyone who you've loved, not necessarily an ancestor, but anyone you've loved who's passed. Creating a simple altar with photographs, with candles, with flowers, with ancestral relics, and then offering food, offering drink, offering water in a way that feels like you're nourishing the realms of the unseen that nourish us constantly. And another way to celebrate is by creating an ancestral feast. So doing a little research into your ancestral lineage and creating a big feast of ancestral foods to honor your own personal heritage, and of course offering some of the feast to your ancestor altar. So those are two ways to work with your ancestors at this time. Another way to really honor this time of year is by creating space for stillness and silence. This is the time of year, you know, between Samhain and solstice, it's the darkest 6 weeks of the year. We're moving even more towards the pinnacle of darkness at solstice, but we're going deep. The energy is drawing us down and in. Excuse me. And we can honor this time of year by honoring that inward pull. So bringing more spaciousness into our days, saying no to more external activity, spending more time just sitting and being with yourself, being in stillness, being in quietude, being in the darkness, and really honoring this period that's such a gift to kind of dream up, as the Celts would say, this beginning of the new cycle. So spending time in silence and stillness, maybe even spending time listening to the whispers of your ancestors, listening to the whispers of the other world, or just being with yourself. And this leads me to the fourth idea, which is really spending time journaling about who you are at your deepest, most authentic skeleton. We often think of skeletons as kind of just bare and, there's no life there. But I'm reconsidering this idea as, the bones like holding this like deep earth of who you are ancestrally, but also, shedding all of the layers of the external, coming down to the like real root of something. All of these thoughts, ideas, images, stories of who we are, you can say all your titles and the qualities you think you have and your roles in this life as a mother, a daughter, a friend, a kind person, a herbalist, all of these titles and stories of who you are in the world. It's kind of actually just fluff. Like, what is the skeleton underneath all that? So spending time journaling, really pouring out all of the stories, all the identities, all the images you have about yourself, and then offering those up to the altar, maybe writing them down and burning them by candlelight or in the fire, and then sitting in that stillness with the question of what is underneath that. What is beneath all of these stories? Who am I at my authentic, bare bones core? And then the very last ritual I have for you is to create more offerings at this time. As everything is shedding and letting go, it's a perfect time to give back to the earth. So much of the time we just take and take and take and consume in our Western culture. And we really need to cultivate a new mindset of reciprocity and offering. And this can happen in many ways, however you want to take this. It's going out and singing to the land or talking to the land, saying prayers for the land. It's literally making a piece of artwork with found objects. It's, offering plant material or stones to a certain place in your land. It also could be sifting through your things, all that you've accumulated, your clothes, your books, whatever it is, sifting through those and really paring down and donating those to somebody in need or an organization or a friend. What we are shedding, what we are letting go of, what we can cut away can be fertilizer for new life for somebody else. So those are 5 ideas to really hone in on utilizing this time of year with intention. And I wanted to also talk about 2 plant medicines to connect into at this time. The first one is elder. And the elder tree is one that is extremely ethereal, mysterious. You might have heard of elderberry, which is often consumed at this time of year as a antiviral, a cold and flu prevention. So it's getting more well known in that capacity, more mainstream. But the elder mother herself is this entity that I feel come in at this time of year, around mid-October. I feel her really strongly come in, and it lets me know that we've kind of stepped through this threshold into Samhain time. And she is a plant that kind of guards the gateways between the worlds. She's a guardian spirit. She stands at the threshold. She helps communicate messages back and forth through the veil. She helps usher souls from life to death. She helps usher souls from the void into birth, into life. So she's a very threshold creature. And this could be any threshold. It could be the threshold for you in a psychological way, helping your conscious mind communicate with your unconscious mind, helping you perceive your shadow, helping you move through a spiritual or energetic or psychological death, a shedding, helping usher you into a rebirth. So we can really call on Elder at this time of year to help us with any of these sorts of things in a shedding process, in a death or a dying process, and helping hold us in that process in a way that feels more easy, more able to bear as a part of life, and not something that is as excruciating as it would be without her support. So she's a wonderful ally at this time. Another plant I suggest working with is Hawthorn. And Hawthorn is quintessentially a heart opener, a heart plant, but so much more. It really gets pigeonholed into that capacity, opening the heart, opening the chest, opening the breath, helping relax the nervous system. But at this time of year, well, let me go back, that in many ancient stories coming from what's now England, Ireland, Scotland, there are stories of the hawthorn being a gateway to the other world, a place where you could be fairy-led, where you could perceive the fairies at certain times of year, perceive the other world more easily through the portal of the hawthorn tree. And the way I, kind of interpret these two aspects of hawthorn together is, the heart being this major field of perception, of receiving subtle messages. We receive so much information from the heart that is at a different level than our brain. So it's at the unconscious level. It's a more subtle experience, and the heart field knows how to communicate through that veil, through the mystery, in that magical space much more easily than the brain does. And so hawthorn kind of helps open this capacity in a way, but also holding your heart protected through this web of thorns that it holds. And at the same time, hawthorn really helps us with grief. And at this time of year, there's often grief that comes up with working with the dead, with the dying process, with the shedding process. There's often grief, there's often nostalgia, there's often a longing for what has been or what could have been. And so working with hawthorn, especially through the grief process and really allowing that sacred grief to come through, hawthorn kind of opens our heart portal enough that we can allow that grief to come through. Otherwise it gets stuck in our bodies. It's a gift to the world to move grief, to get it out, to share that. It's there's so much. Hawthorn actually showed me this one time, this like layers and layers of unfelt grief on the earth. And there are, you know, several, if not several, there's many sensitive folks who can feel this grief and who grieve this sacred grief that needs to move through in order to be released and felt and transmuted and transformed, in order to open up to more beauty and more life. And so when we allow the grief to move through us, it's a beautiful act. And Hawthorn holds us really protected and safe when we're moving through this grief process, and allows our hearts to open in almost like this heartbreak, our hearts break open through that pain of the experience, but allowing more to come through, more grief, but more joy, more love, more openness, more sensitivity, more vulnerability. And Hawthorn just really helps support this beautiful process. So if you do need grief support, if you are feeling that, I'd reach for Hawthorn. It's also just a lovely, soothing, uplifting, helps reduce like the tight constriction of the chest and just like allow things to soften, open. So I hope that those rituals and those plant medicines will help you at this time of year. I would love to hear from you in the comments below if anything resonated with you, what your favorite thing about this video is, or what you love to do at this time of year. And if you would like to be informed about more of these videos, seasonal connection, connecting with plants, connecting with yourself in a deeper way, please subscribe to this channel and hit the like button on this video. And please enjoy this beautiful, precious Samhain time of year.